we spent most of this summer working at the Larnaca District Archaeological Museum, or most of the last 10 days, checking a catalog and doing a lot of computer work and stuff like that, working with our databases and moving back and forth from physical objects to the data objects. But we did do a little original research, and one of the problems that we've had over the last 5 years of working at our site, or 9 years, or however long, is trying to resolve what these things are. These things are called basket-handled amphoras. And Scott Moore is our ceramicist, and he's been at the sort of epicenter of trying to figure out what these things are and when they date to, more importantly. And so we spent probably about 4 hours one afternoon, or 3 hours one afternoon, organizing these things on this table and trying to begin to get a sense for when they date to and where they're coming from on our site, both horizontally across our site as a survey area, as a survey project site, and also vertically through stratigraphy. So Scott and I thought we would at least record some of our observations as to these basket handles for large amphora storage vessels that we found all over our site. So Scott, how have we gone about kind of organizing this stuff?
Well, the first thing we did was just basically lay them all out, like starting with the jigsaw puzzle. And with a jigsaw puzzle, you look for at least I look for the corners first. So first thing that we did was we just broke them up on how they looked, put similar colors together, so that these two pieces look sort of alike. So we might have put them side by side. In addition to the fabric color, which is the color of it, we also looked at the shape. And we had some that are completely round. We had some that were what we call a strap handle. And so then we started breaking them up by color and shape. And then as Bill pointed out, we also broke them up by where they came from on the site. And once we had those three variables together, we could start looking at some similarities. And the great thing, as Bill pointed out, was that we have most of it is from the survey, but we also have some from stratified context. So we have a style that we can date, and then we can use it to help date the rest. And so, as Bill said, we spent some time, and to be honest, as a ceramicist, that was one of the really fun things. It's just sort of moving things around. What fits, what works, his opinion versus my opinion. And so it was actually sort of cool to see how they really broke down into a few distinct groupings. And I think it worked quite well.
So can we point out just a few of the strange differences, the strange different amphora handles that we've kind of categorized as these basket handles, and maybe even make a few, at least initial observations as to when these might date to. So what are the ones that we can most securely date from the excavated context? What do they look like?
Well, those would be these, which, as you can see, sat on the shoulder of the amphora and the handle curved up and over, so it's like a big basket. And they're very distinct, sort of a strap-like handle. These tend to be a little bit more buff, and we figured these date really to no earlier than the 5th century, most likely 4th century. And so these are sort of our foundation.
Maybe even later in the 4th century.
Maybe even later in 4th, maybe in the 3rd.
Yeah.
But that'll depend on some other things. But these are sort of our cornerstone, and as they move, some of the other ones will probably shift and date a little bit too.
So we found other amphora handles then that these were found stratigraphically, so we can date them by association with other well-known forms of pottery. Others we found from that general area that look similar, that we've been able to suggest, far less confidently, but suggest nonetheless that they probably date to the same time. I don't know if you can point out some of these that are coming from the same basic area on the site, although not stratigraphically excavated.
Well, we've got the ones from 501, which was picked up on the survey on top, which we don't have a lot of these left, but you can see they bear sort of a similarity, maybe a little bit bigger, fabrics sort of close, but these were found on the surface on top of the excavated context, so we figured these probably go with these. We also had the ones that were found in another buried context that we happened upon, which are also on the edge of Beagle, so those probably go with those as well.
Right, and these you can see are a different color from the ones that were excavated, but are beginning to get to a similar shape, right? These things kind of look the same, if you imagine it. They're both sort of roundish. So we can say that these from the surface of the site, these from an excavated context, these from nearby and probably subsurface. Do we have ones that fall way outside of our
expectations that look similar but are the same similar type but so different that we have to kind of group them off to the side?
Well, there's two. I mean, we've got the ones from down the plane, which sort of look similar in color, but slightly very different.
So these come from about 150 meters, 200 meters to the south of the excavated areas. And you can see these are different colors, and they're really, really flat. They don't have any of that roundness to them.
But they do share, you know, again, you can see the starting of the curve. They look a lot alike, but this is from an area where we mainly got late Roman material. We also have the ones that we really just don't know what quite to do with them. The fabric's very different. Some is just from exposure, but they're different colors. They're big and heavy and clunky, look very, very different. Most of these came from, where did these come from? 1023.
Yeah, a lot of these came from an area where these came from the surface, but they've been associated with lots of earlier material on the surface, particularly archaic material. So material that runs, I don't know, maybe 200, 300 years earlier than the Hellenistic types. So while you would never want to bet your bippy on it, you could maybe think that these could be a little bit earlier. They're much coarser fabrics, much clunkier vessels. Maybe they're to be associated with an earlier kind of vessel that's related in some way to what these Hellenistic amphoras would eventually look like.
And we even had two that we didn't know what to do with. So these two, which vaguely look alike, this one's really badly damaged, but this one from, you know, nearby area, they don't quite match up in color or shape, quite the same. We put those off by themselves, but don't know what to do with them.
Like any good project, we have to have outliers that can't be accommodated for. So anyway, of all of our work this summer, this is probably the most, was certainly the most entertaining and probably the most productive in terms of producing knowledge rather than simply organizing knowledge and data that we've gathered over the past